Right.
You know, when somebody's like, hey, this is this, you're like, okay. And if someone else says, no, it's not, you're like, no, yeah, it is. And you can't change that as a child. You learn to go sideways, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just funny how then you get older and everybody says, hey, you should be more responsible. You should have more responsibility. You should do these things. But don't be more responsible when it comes to, you know, having a tough time.
The way I kind of see it is kind of interesting is that when you're a child, you have all these free passes. It's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to be learning. It's okay not to know everything.
Yeah.
And when you get to an adult, you're expected to know everything.
Yeah.
And I know people say, oh, that's not true. I don't expect someone to know how to build a rocket or whatever. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just like normal things that, you know, you expect someone with a driver's license to know everything about the road and how to drive. Well, you know, maybe they don't, and obviously they don't because, you know, we run into road rage and such all the time.
Right.
Or, you know, like with relationships, you know, there's a lot of different learning levels, and when you're an adult, you're learning about different things than when you're a child. You know,
Right.
as a child, you learn, let's say, relationships, about how to be in friendships or whatever.
Right.
But then when you become an adult, you have to learn about how to have a romantic relationship or like a committed relationship, which is completely different from the platonic relationships you learn to build as a child.
Right.
But you're expected to know how to do all of that from the start.
Oh yeah, you should just know.
And I think society's kind of shifting in the sense that it's not, you know, they're becoming much more forgiving about not knowing how to do everything. But the thing is they're only forgiving if you come out and say, I don't know how to do this, can you help me?
Sure.
If you try to pretend like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing, and then they find out you don't, then that's when all the ridicule and that's when everything comes out. Yeah, like, well, what do you mean? You told us you knew how to do it.
But it's okay though to not know how to do it.
It is.
That's
completely okay.
That's the part where a lot of people struggle too because they're so worried about image and perception that they'll sacrifice their own inner dignity to maintain perception on the outside.
Right.
Through strangers. And a lot of times through people that literally have nothing to do with their life and nothing to do with the outcome of anything in their life. Right? Like for example, people with cars, when they get a nice car or they get rims or something. And they like that feeling of people checking them out. Like I've had nice cars too, and I think I was telling you, and somebody said, "Oh, well, you just got, you know, you showing off." I'm like, no, my windows are always up. You never see me with my window down, blasting my music so people can see me.
Right.
The only time they see me is when I'm getting in or out of my car. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got this because I like it, and I don't care what somebody else says, you know. But I've heard other people say, "Oh man, I love driving this when people check me out," and this. I'm like, dude, but you don't even know that person, and you're never gonna see him ever in your life, like ever again.
Right.
And you're worried about what they think.
Yeah.
You know
that holds a lot of people. That holds a lot of people back.
Yeah.
It holds me back.
Yeah.
You know, like we always say, we're not perfect, and we're not at the peak of our growth, our self improvement. You know, I know that holds me back a lot.
Yeah.
But it's something I'm always I wouldn't say I'm struggling with it. It's something that I'm always overcoming and striving for is to get over that.
And that's the key. So what you're saying is that's the key to what you just said, because, you know, we're talking about being responsible, and we'll get back to that, but you're being responsible in the sense that you're saying, hey, I know I'm like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm aware of it. So now I'm going to work on changing it.
Exactly.
And that's a huge difference, because a lot of people, you're saying that out loud, like, yeah, I know I'm like this. A lot of people inside are like, yeah, I know I'm like this.
Right.
But on the outside, they're like, no, I'm not. No.
Right. And what do we always say, you think how you speak, you don't speak how you think. And so every time that you say, no, I'm not like that, you're reinforcing that you're not like that.
Yeah.
And so then you're shifting the blame to somebody else rather than taking responsibility and saying, this is how I am, but I'm working on it and I'm going to overcome it.
Yeah.
And then so if you say that often enough, eventually you get there.
Yeah. And what you said, okay, so here's an awesome thing. I love that you said that, because what's really tough about self-improvement is that it's also self-gratification. See, a lot of times people do stuff because they want outward gratification, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want some kind of a kudos or whatever for them doing something, right? Well, when it's in your life, when it's for you, the person that cares the most is you, and that should really be all that matters at first, you know?
Yeah.
So be proud of you. Like I said, you heard me say it, I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of myself for doing this or that. And it's not, I'm not saying that looking for confirmation or affirmation from you. I'm just saying like, hey, I am. Like, I've done this, and it's pretty cool because I struggled with it before,
right.
and now I don't.
And you're always going to get that confirmation and that affirmation from somebody else because they see that you're working on yourself. And if that person actually cares about you, they want to see you grow.
Yeah. And there's all positive. That's what, okay, so that's where I get lost because everything about self-improvement is positive. Everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's positive to you. It feels positive. It looks positive. It's positive to other people. It just, that's what I mean by when we talk about solution-based and having a solution and it benefiting other people. That's like such an easy way to benefit other people. That's an easy way to do it.
Right.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, it's a lot of work for other people. Like, here's what they say, right? I can't even take care of myself, so how am I going to worry about somebody else? And it's like, wow, so if you just said that, then you're aware of it. But you're ignoring it, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, you can't say that in a joke, because people say that, and that's a serious thing. This is just my opinion, but, you know, you've heard me say it plenty of times. My battle that I'm really working on upstairs in this guy's head is now that I'm in this space where I'm understanding these things and I'm in observant mode, like I always say, I'm really battling, like, seeing how retarded people are. You know what I mean? Not to, and I shouldn't use that name retarded, but just how people don't, literally are oblivious, literally are blind to the fact that 9 times out of 10, whatever issue they're having, they are the catalyst for that issue.
Right.
And it blows me away because it's like, and like we're saying about responsibility, because when it comes up and you'll say, hey, why is this going on, or how did this happen? Well, it wasn't me, because, or this wouldn't happen if this or that didn't happen, or whatever the excuse is, right? And the thing is like, an excuse is just that. Somebody's selling something in every conversation, and I ain't buying. That's what I like to say. You know what I mean? Because an excuse, if I have an excuse, if I'm like, well, Mike, I did this or that, people say that because they're looking for confirmation.
Right.
On what they did.
That's what it is? That's okay.
Yeah.
You're okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
like,
not your fault.
Really? And it's like, no. People get blown away. You've seen it. When I'm like, yep, my fault. Sorry. You know what I mean? Nothing I could say about it. I know maybe this happened or maybe that happened, but ultimately it's on me.
Right. Even if it's something that seems out of your control and normally be an excuse, you have to realize that it was preventable at one point in time, and you chose not to take those actions to prevent it, and that's why it affected you in this particular manner.
Yeah.
Not necessarily why it happened. It may have happened, but you could have removed yourself from that situation. If, like, let's say just like a car accident.
Yes.
Right? So you're driving along, and then 2 cars ahead of you, some like the engine blows up, and the car just like dies on the road. The person in front of it, behind him, doesn't realize it, rear ends him. The person in front of you, behind that person, slams on their brakes, and then you end up rear ending the other person because you're tailgating.
Yeah.
Rather than be like, well, that's their fault. You know, if they hadn't had their engine blow up, then, well, no, you were tailgating.
Yeah.
You could have avoided it if you had been doing this.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a really pretty cut and dry example. But that happens all the time with relationships, with business transactions, with every aspect of life, is you have that opportunity to either prevent it or do something else. And you chose not to. And as soon as you realize that there's a choice, then you can take responsibility and be like, okay, you know, it may seem like all this happened, but it's still my fault that it happened to me.
Yes.
So I'm going to make sure that it doesn't happen again by doing X, Y, Z.
And here's the funny thing about what you're saying is that when you're admitting something that you did wrong, when you're admitting something that you, whatever the case is, if you're like, hey, this happened, my fault, or taking responsibility, whatever, whether it is fully your responsibility or not, isn't it amazing the change in demeanor and perception that people have when you accept responsibility for something?
Right, yeah. Even if it's not, like you said, even though it's not, it's only like, say, partially. Like, let's say we were trying to meet up somewhere, and we had thought that earlier on through email, we were talking about something, we were going to switch the time, but we decided not to, but I ended up there at 1 o'clock, and you ended up there at 2 o'clock, and we missed each other. that's wrong on both of our parts. We both should have followed up to make sure.
Right.
But I'm not saying, oh, it's Joe's fault. I'm saying, you know what? I should have been the bigger person. I should have followed up and made sure that we're all on the same page.
Mhm.
That's my bad. I'll do that. And by taking that, you really do empower yourself to make that change positively.
Yeah.
And you notice whenever we're taking ownership of something, we're always coming up with, and this is how I'm going to not do it later. That's where the improvement comes.
Exactly, because now you're putting into practice what you just learned, and it's like, if you don't put into practice what you learn, then you're not learning, because learning is, you know what I mean?
Right.
Is moving on to the next step from that, and that's what's amazing about life. So, this thing about responsibility, it's taking one of the steps out of a productive life. It's taking one of the steps out, because we talked about justification and then choices, and now owning your decision. And that means owning good or bad decisions.
Exactly.
You know
People
what I
always own good decisions. That's an easy thing.
Yeah. Oh, that was me. Yep.
But owning
You know
bad
what I mean?
decisions and just saying, not trying to blame it on anything, but just saying, yeah, I was being an idiot.
And here's the thing: is like that's the first step to the solution. That's the amazing part to me, because it's like, if nobody, because we've experienced this, right? If nobody says anything and everybody's kind of like, "Oh, it wasn't me," it festers.
Right.
And it just keeps going on, and speculation starts happening, more blame starts happening, fingers start getting pointed, right? But when somebody can just say, "Hey, look, my responsibility, here's what's happened," regardless, or "Hey, you know what, I could have done this better, let's move on," it changes things. Because then everybody's like, "Oh, okay, now that is gone now, right? That dark cloud or whatever, now it's gone because somebody dissipated it, and now we can move on."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I mean by like being better people, because it shouldn't always just be one person.
Well, see, here's what ends up
Every
happening a
single
lot
time.
in my experience is, let's say the example earlier where we both missed each other. If I come to you and I say, you know, that's my fault, I should have done it. By me taking self-responsibility and not blaming you, that not only is it self-improvement for me, but it inspires you to become a better person as well.
Right.
And some people might view this as jumping on the bandwagon or be like, no, dude, it's my fault too because I should have done that and I'm going to do that as well. And so that's how it spreads. That's how being a positive example spreads.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows what's right or wrong.
Right.
But when they see something that's right, it helps inspire them to do the same.
They almost feel bad that they're not doing it too, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then they start doing it. And that's what I mean by this. Like, positivity is way better than negativity.
You ever notice that you never feel guilty about doing something bad? Like doing something good, I mean.
Yeah.
Like, so in that example, I'm trying to be a better or a bigger person, and you feel guilty that you're not. You never see me being a horrible person and someone feels guilty that they're not being horrible.
No.
So, I mean, we have a conscience. Like, we know what's right or wrong. It's just we ignore that a lot of times for society, for fear of what other people think of us.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
we need to take responsibility and be like, no, I'm still going to do the right thing because I know it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And when other people see you do the right thing, almost every single time they commend you for it and they're like, you know, I wasn't that bigger person, but for that fear of being judged, you never do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we can go on and on about that because that's, you know, peers and all that other crap, but all of this comes like the self-responsibility. It also comes with being able to take ownership, like we're talking about, of you and your life and your actions.
Mm-hmm.
Because with this conversation, we're saying that one of the issues is that people will be involved in a situation or whatever the case is, but then they choose, like when it benefits them, to take responsibility for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the reason why that doesn't work, is because, okay, you can have like a whole spectrum, right, of incidences. In that whole spectrum of incidences, the common denominator is you, maybe in every one, right?
Right.
But the way some people live is like, okay, yeah, here's a whole spectrum of things. Here's me and all of them. But you know what? This one turned out good, so I'm going to pick that one. That's the one that I'm involved in. That one didn't so much, so yeah, that was somebody else's fault. That was this. That happened because of this, and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, you know what? I'm going to take responsibility. Yeah, that one turned out good. That was on me. So they pick and choose. You know what I mean?
Right.
They pick and choose what's good in their own life. It's like, guys, this is you though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can't just be like, oh, yep, just